We are
That's
voice
right.
actors,
With
and we are
coffee.
business
Did you
owners.
see I have my coffee time cup
Oh,
today?
coffee time! I love that. I
Yeah.
have my Bitty and Bose, my not broken mug,
Oh, very
and
nice.
then, yeah,
Okay.
it's little shout out to those guys, Bitty
Oh,
and Bo
very nice.
Emery's
Oh, I
being a
can't
little,
see. Yeah, it's a little
"Oh,
blurry.
camera."
Well,
So, Bitty and Bose is cool. They're a coffee shop that, hires, persons with disabilities like Downs and,
oh, that's so cool.
autism, and yeah, it's really, really pretty neat. They do good stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I like them.
Well, hello everyone. It's so good to see you. Very excited about today. If you are new or just joining us, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as always and the notification bell
Yeah.
because when we go live, in order for you, like it'll pop up that we're live, but you have to hit that notification bell and say that you want to see us. Basically send you a notification.
Let
If
us know
not, if
when
you
you're
just
being done.
subscribe, it won't send you the notification. So make sure you hit that. And also please feel free to leave comments in the chat, ask us
Heck
questions.
yeah.
We love the questions and we're here to answer them for you.
The questions are good.
Yes, so we are continuing. Hello, Miriam from Oregon. It's good to see you.
Miriam.
We are continuing the conversation from yesterday about voiceover
Oh
rates.
boy. Yep.
Yay! I think we had a good opening conversation about it yesterday.
We did. We laid
Yeah,
some very cool
I
groundwork. I
think
think,
so.
we kind of touched on a lot of the general information that's necessary. So,
Yeah.
today, I don't know, do we want to get into the weeds with it?
Yeah, I think where we kind of left off,
Hmm.
and to move, we can kind of I guess move forward here is we kind of left off talking about, the first step is maybe looking at some rate guides, right? And then we kind of got into without being specific about the pricing itself,
Yeah.
how those rate guides differ.
Yes.
And how they differ mainly now based on whether you're a beginner or you're more intermediate or
Hmm.
you're more seasoned advanced. So I think now maybe we can start to go deeper into the pricing itself
Yeah.
and how all that works. So you or me, we can start. I mean, I think a good way, maybe to start off, if you don't mind, I'll kick us off with kind of the idea of maybe one way that we as an industry price our work, all right, is kind of how maybe it's framed. And generally speaking, we have a lot of categories in voiceover, and all those categories, many of them price differently.
They
We
do.
meaning we do some we talked about yesterday some on prompts if you're doing voicemails and things.
Hmm.
Audiobooks are per finished hour rates, which is not the actual hours you spend. It's just it's finished. We've got oh my goodness, animation work. There's such a,
Hmm.
a battle and stuff about that. But even we know all the stuff with Crunchyroll and some of those people with dubbing is they
Yeah.
pay per hour, like just like hourly work
Mhm.
almost in some of those things. And there's so many different ways. But in general, how at least it's all framed right is that we kind of price our work in two ways, if you will. One, we have a studio fee, something that we typically charge for our time
Mhm.
to record, to be in
Mhm.
a studio and record. All
Mhm.
right. And that varies.
It does.
And then after the studio fee, we have a licensing fee, a fee which the idea was a long time ago. I don't know who came up with it, but good, it was good idea. But a long time ago, right? The idea is that this is our intellectual property that we've created. We've performed, and it's our IP, and we are going to charge a fee to license the use of that work
Yep.
for a period of time, for a determined amount of visibility, and that's how the general look of it is, and then we can choose to renegotiate that down the road, whether it's needed to go. And there is also, we can choose to have let people buy out the use of it as well. There's a lot of variations in there. But would you agree that's the general?
Yeah. So, yes, you're right. Studio fee. The way I always describe studio fee is it's literally the cost of walking in the door.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm here, I'm ready to work. This is my minimum. This is the base fee. I have arrived.
Right.
Okay. Then you have the job itself and what the initial recording is going to pay. And yes, that's like you said, that can vary tremendously
Mm-hmm.
depending on what exactly the industry is and what it's for. And typically with that, I always say you want to kind of divide it into one of two categories. It's either broadcast or non-broadcast. And that's going to be the thing that really, I think, sets some of the major parameters going into that third category, which is like you said, it's usage.
Mm-hmm.
And on usage, yeah, I mean, I've seen usage as short as 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I've seen usage as long as 5 years.
Mm.
So it all kind of it just depends on what it is and what they want to license. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're paying incrementally based on that usage. And if they want to renew it and they want to use it again, they're paying again. And this, by the way, is also how actors get residuals.
Mm-hmm.
And residuals are awesome
Mm.
because you do nothing. You do nothing. A check comes in the mail. Sometimes you didn't even know you were getting it. It's freaking glorious. Um,
Right, which
and
is the same idea if a writer writes a book
yeah,
and they
exactly.
publish something, right? And they hopefully will get residuals and royalties
Yes.
from
Yes.
the ongoing use of it and
Yep.
purchasing of it.
Yep. You're being
Hmm.
paid again for your creative and effort. And yes, in
Right.
this case, literally, it's our voice because we own it. It's the intellectual property piece, like you were talking about. The other thing that I think is important with usage and that we didn't really talk any about yesterday is that with usage, the thing that you want to avoid, if at all possible, is in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's permanent licensure. It's basically giving up or signing away your intellectual rights and allowing the company that's hiring you to own the material indefinitely.
Mm.
Now, occasionally, depending on the situation, it might be warranted. Like, I've done it, like, I think there are certain situations where it's like, yeah, okay, it's fine. But in most instances, it's not. You really want to even a talent agents will tell you that one of their main objectives is always to get a limitation on usage. And even if that limitation is absurd, right? It might be 15 years or 50. I mean, it could be like a crazy number, but you still want it to have an expiration. Now, usually you do want it to be something reasonable, though, and
Oh
typically
yeah.
it's going to be 1 to 3 years.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a very important topic too, because there are, when we talk about platforms, this is a challenge on platforms,
Mm-hmm.
because platforms are, a lot of them are kind of pass through entities in a way. So meaning like they just set up a platform, you go on it, you deal with the customer directly, and they take a percentage, and they offer a few tools in there, like you can add the rights and stuff like that. But a
Yes.
lot of it is not defined. It's ambiguous, and they did that for a reason. I'm not saying it was a good reason, but they did it for a reason, right? And typically the reason was more for the client side and not necessarily for us as the voice actor side.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the most important things that you can do right off the bat before even determining your price is doing what you're doing now, is learning what we're saying, because the understanding of how it's all framed allows you then to approach all of these different areas where you're marketing with a knowledge of how to go and tell people what your pricing is.
Yeah.
And because you're going to have a lot of people also who might be new and they don't know, you're going to have a lot of people who absolutely know what's going on, and you don't even have to work hard with them because they are aware of it. But then you're going to come across people who are almost a lot like us,
Yeah.
individual entrepreneurs who are trying to start their production company or whatever,
Mhm.
and they're not going to know what you're talking about, and they're not going to want to do what you're talking about. So you have to be able to know this stuff in order to, be polite and kind, but give expectations. You know what I'm saying, Gabby? I think that's an
Oh, for
important thing. So
sure.
this knowledge is very invaluable, because if you don't know this, you'll end up giving away stuff and you weren't even aware of it.
Two things that I think become really critical when we start getting into the negotiation portion, right? The first is what I think is one of the most important rules of business, which is whoever speaks first loses, right? The
Hmm.
first number to be thrown out
Hmm.
is the loser
Hmm.
effectively, because as the voice actor, you really want to avoid that. You want to avoid number disclosure if you can and get that client talking. You want to get them talking, what's your expectation? What does your budget look like? What did you pay the last guy? That's always a good question. Try to get this client to divulge a number that they're comfortable with so that you know what kind of bargaining power you have and what kind of leverage you have. Especially if
Absolutely.
you're new, right? Because you could have a number in your head and they could have a number that's far greater in their head. And if you give them that low number, they're going to be like, oh, this is great. We just got a
Oh
super
yeah.
deal.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I don't know how many voice actors I've talked to over the years and worked with who, after the fact, like, oh gosh, I left so much on the table because
Yeah.
they had, their budget was not what they actually, um, you know, quoted them.
Yeah.
So I mean, that definitely happens. I'm also, as years gone on, I'm also become a big proponent of, when you do quote a price, make sure you quote high. I know this is kind of crazy, but this is the and we all learn. I'm here as living proof that you learn through time.
Oh,
Right? What you think in the beginning isn't always as you progress to believe as you learn, right? And grow. So in the beginning, I was so happy just that someone wanted to hire me, that I was willing to give away the house just
yeah.
because I was just elated and
Yeah.
excited. But as time goes on and you realize, yes, people do like what you're doing and they are going to hire you and they
Mhm.
will pay you
Yeah.
more, you start maybe learn the negotiation, as Gabby was just talking about. And I think one of those tools is I've learned, if you start high, you can always go lower, and you look like the hero. If you start low, you never can go higher.
Nope. You got nowhere to
You
go.
just got nowhere to go because people are not going to just voluntarily offer to pay you more.
No.
So, these I would you not say, Gabby, I think, and it's funny because now that I think about it, we don't well, maybe we do or you do, but we don't in the industry talk enough about negotiating.
Mm, we don't.
Do you know what I mean? And I had to tell you, I feel like I'm negotiating every single time a job comes around. I mean, unless it's a client that I've worked with and we have a relationship and we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But generally, it's a negotiation. Now, negotiation doesn't mean like a hostile
No,
negotiation here,
no,
but
no, no. But
you know
it,
what I mean?
yeah, it's like a 50-50 in voiceover. I always say that half of your jobs are just going to come with a number.
Hmm.
We're paying X, we're offering X, the job pays X. And then it's just a matter of, do you agree or not? Right? Are you
Hmm.
going to answer the audition or not as a result? And then other times, yeah, you are negotiating. And I know for me, my negotiating skills were honed when I was in casting because I was advocating for other actors and I
Mm.
wasn't advocating for myself. It's really
Mm.
easy to kind of cave and hem and haw when it's your
Right.
own voice and like, I don't know, it's hard to be a little cutthroat. But when you're advocating for someone else, you're more likely to kind of stick to your guns and really support that person and go, you don't understand, this talent is so prolific and so
Right.
amazing and this is what they're worth. So I always recommend that, newer talent kind of partner up.
Mm.
And, maybe if you have like one of those accountability groups that, is very popular, or you have a really close friend in a class, or, I know VOJ has so many of these little pockets of
Hmm.
actors that do this. Our people kind of get together and
Oh
make
yeah.
little alliances,
Hmm.
negotiate for one another,
I
step in
love
and
that.
play agent for the other actor and
It's so
learn.
funny though, isn't
you
it?
know
Because you think, I mean, it seems we should like do that most for ourselves, but you're right.
Mhm.
We're more willing to, do it for someone else just
For
because
sure.
we want to be there for that other person. I think you're absolutely right.
We get some really good
Yes,
questions
we
coming in.
do. All right, so this is, I'm assuming it's Sage, or I could be really wrong. Sage one VO.
We'll go with Sage.
Um,
Yeah.
is it ever okay to ask the client what their budget for the project is?
Yes, it is. Always.
Absolutely.
Always. Yeah, I think that's one of the most important questions we can ask. Um, and some people won't always give you a straight answer, but you might be surprised by how many clients will.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree completely. I think and it forces them to put that number out there,
Mhm.
right? Because if, again, like what Gabby said, if you put a number out first, they could be double,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have any idea. So
Yeah.
absolutely great. Yep. Okay. Dylan says, how do we enforce broadcast usage rights? Create a calendar and check 2 years from the file delivery date to make sure the client isn't using my voice still. Ooh, this is a really good
It's a
question.
great question. So, typically speaking, your calendar reminder is going to be set for 30 days from the end of the original contract. And you're going to kind of do it in two different increments, right? 30 days and 15 days. And you want to connect with the client in advance to find out what their situation is. Are they going to use it again? Do they want to continue operate? Yeah, that's mainly the big one. When you have a client that's actively using and renewing, especially in broadcast, it means that these folks are accustomed to this sort of thing. They're used to media buying. They're used to placing what are called buys in the media world. So they're going to be pretty upfront about it because they
Hmm.
know the hot water and the shit show they can get into if they're not being upfront. And the fact
Right.
that you can come in on the back end, oh, you can get so much money in a lawsuit for unauthorized usage, and
Hmm.
very, very few of them want to take that risk. However, what I will tell you that's fascinating, voice actors are like little miniature pit bulls for each other. Every time I have something air on a grand scale, I cannot tell you how many times I'm being pinged from fellow voice actors coast to coast. Did I just hear you on a such and such? Did I
Oh,
just
I
hear you on
know.
this? Did I hear you on this? And effectively, a lot of times when we do that, what we're doing is we're policing for one another.
Hmm.
We're basically going, hey, I heard you. That's really cool. But did you know you're being used on X, Y, and Z? And I have had it happen one time where through that, I was able to go back to the originating source of the material and say, you didn't renew for this, and
Mm,
collect a whole bunch of money. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So
Dylan did say I also don't have an attorney on retainer to create and deliver cease and desist letters. And then it says, well, that doesn't seem like a good way to get the client to return anyway.
a cease and desist doesn't necessarily require an attorney. You can
Mm.
draft your own cease and desist. If you are a legal entity,
Oh yeah.
if you're a corporation or a company or sole proprietor LLC, you can draft your own. Um, so don't think that a cease and desist requires that, but it does require that they respond. And so what I always say is you do the 30-day, you do the
Hmm.
15-day. If you have not heard from them by the contract's expiration, and the assumption is, okay, the material is no longer being
Sure.
used, that's fine. But then you come to find out that it is, that's when you start hounding them again. And after a certain amount of time, yeah, you can issue a cease and desist.
Absolutely. I do think, and we're coming down to our time
Hmm.
today. So I think maybe tomorrow we'll kind of pick up where I kind of lived. really the first, and I think it's an important thing to talk about. And it can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but Gabby and I, we want to be here for you.
Mhm.
So we need to address some of the things that when I first started was a lot of the platforms and the wide differential of pricing that goes on in some of these platforms as opposed to what Gabby and I have been talking about today,
For
which
sure.
the way we've been talking about today is what we generally charge, what the industry as a whole generally uses as us charging. But there are these platforms that there's a lot of work that goes through them and they have to be addressed because it just made me think about the contract. Gabby just mentioned the contract. We didn't talk much about it yet, and we'll
Mhm.
talk about that. But like if you enter and if you start, so how it works, right, or anything is if once you are by law, if you are hired by once you guys enter into any agreement where there is money put on the table and you're hired by them, unless it is written out, unless the terms are stated a certain way, they own what they are buying.
Mhm.
So it's important for you to understand like the law, right? They own what they are buying unless in a contract you stated XYZ, right?
Mhm.
You have the right to license this for X amount of days to
Yep.
usage, and then we have a renewal period, but that all has to be put out there. And if it's not, then by law, and they buy it, they give you money, they own it. And
Yep.
they can do whatever they want with it. So the contract part is very important to this. And sadly, a lot of people are not using contracts in through websites. And you can. And actually these websites will tell you please use your own contract. And and even though they will tell you if you ask them. Again, they won't like just tell you to do it, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there is a shady part to them, but it's also they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to market. So don't ignore it. It's just an important thing to protect yourself and I think to talk about.
It
And
is.
and so anyways, I just want to bring the contract code because you made a good point about the contract just then, and I was like, you're right. If you don't have a contract, how are you going to send in anything if there's nothing that says, well,
Exactly.
you're supposed to not use this anyways?
Exactly. And just real quick, because Jeanette made a great point about, not wanting to be annoying or, asking too many questions. Hey guys, what do you think casting directors do? What do you think talent agents do? When they work for us, when they negotiate jobs, they ask all the questions. There's no
Mm-hmm.
such thing as being annoying. Pricing a simple voiceover job can take a 30-minute phone call. So
Oh yeah.
don't worry about it. You're not being annoying at all. You should ask all the questions. And if a client is unwilling to answer those questions or you feel like you're being pressured, walk.
Mm.
That's a bad sign to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Dylan said, "Thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing, and these lives are such a great tool to
Aw,
continue
thanks,
learning."
Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan. And Alex says, "Thank you for the rights, the question and answer. I just finished setting up my first fiber gig, and I set up 1 year usage.
Woohoo.
I had not even thought about going back to the client after that period."
Mm-hmm. Gotta
Mm-hmm.
check. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Um, well, thank you guys so much.
Yay.
We will be back tomorrow. I think this is a really good. This is really good and
Yeah.
important.
This is a
So.
fun topic this week. I'm digging this. I think we'll
Absolutely. So you
hit it one
guys
more
be
time tomorrow.
safe, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.